On the 1st of February, I boasted that Borderlands 3 Redux would be an actively supported mod up until the end of Borderlands 3, and I believe to date we have stuck to that promise, which is why today I'm here to provide you guys with the first ever development update for Borderlands 3 Redux mod. So we're going to be splitting this video up into two sections, and I'm going to start with section number 1. And within this category, I will not just be speaking about how the launch of the mod went, but how we handled post-launch as well, and what we did with the hotfixes and updates since we first released it on the 1st of February. And then the second half of the video is where I'm going to be talking about what is next for Redux. You know, now that DLC 6 is right around the corner, what happens to the mod? Does it just fade into existence, or do we keep going with it? And if we do keep going with it, where do we go next? So first and foremost, if you do not know what Borderlands 3 Redux is, it is a complete overhaul mod for Borderlands 3 on the PC only, which is designed to breathe new light into Borderlands 3 and give players a brand new way to play the game. And as the main developer of Borderlands 3 Redux mod, I personally feel like we didn't exactly get that across properly at launch. And while I myself may be the lead developer of Redux, I'm definitely not the only one who has worked on this mod, because there has been influenced by so many people, and of course we thank them all in the original video. All of them belong to the modding community and they are all fantastic people, so thank you once again to everyone who helped so far. But now I want to break down a bit more about the mod itself and what the goal with the mod was, because I had a lot of people asking me, you know, what do you want to do with Redux and what is the purpose of this mod? Are you trying to save BL3? Is this the so-called community patch of BL3? And I know you probably are hoping for some big elaborate speech and explanation, but the answer is simply no. Borderlands 3 Redux was only ever made for myself, because I wanted to do a playthrough when mods got released and call it Redux to give the playthrough a bit more flair. Call it clickbaity, but that's what I wanted to do. But then as I was doing the playthrough, I had a lot of people asking questions in my chat like, hey, can we play this too? And from there, things just kind of spiraled out of control, and here we are today. So when we first started working on Redux, it was originally just this big collection and collaboration of mods that other people had made, and it spiraled off of one person's mod, which is Spy's Spy Patch. And truly, when I say that without Spy there would be no Redux, believe me, that is not an exaggeration. Without Spy, I would have never even thought of making Redux. So when I then decided I wanted to make Redux a full-on mod that people could download, what I didn't want is for people to have to download like 60, 70 mods that one day may be deprecated or broken or just totally irrelevant to the whole mod pack, right? So then it dawned on me, well, why don't I go into this modding Discord and learn how to mod myself and learn how to code and make this a full-on mod and include things that people haven't already done before. So that's what I did, you know. For the next month or two, I was in the Discord every day asking questions, gathering information, you know, taking bits and pieces of other people's mod, referencing stuff, and just learning how it all works. And it's gotten to a point where it's now gone from me just tampering with someone's file and changing a value on the end of a line of code to me actually writing whole blocks of code myself by hand. And even though I've been told by modders to generate it by code, I just can't, you know, some habits you just can't break, and I prefer to write all my code by hand. So I mean, that's what it is. Redux's start to finish development time when we released it on the 1st of February was only 3.5 weeks. And when I look back on that now, I just think how crazy it is that in 3.5 weeks we were able to make a mod which literally just overhauled every single thing in the game. And it's just absolutely bizarre to think that we had so many people on board with it, so many amazing modders, so many amazing creators, and even Gearbox themselves chiming in and just helping us out with things and, you know, where to go. And then from there, you know, we released the official reveal trailer of Borderlands 3 Redux mod, which to date, at the time of recording this video, has over 110,000 views. I mean, talk about a reception. And you know, I was trying to be optimistic before, but I didn't think the trailer would get as much attention as it actually did. I mean, it was ridiculous. So many people just with their eyes on this mod, and even people like Cathalion tweeting out about Redux. It was insane. And even though the mod wasn't out, we were actively releasing patch notes every single day, more or less, showing people what we were doing leading up to the release of the mod. You know, everything looked great for this mod, and it was was crazy, to say the least. It was absolutely crazy. It was too much to handle almost. But then we got to the release of the mod, and it felt like everything we had been doing for the past month to make this mod everything that it possibly could be was all for nothing. Because the launch of Redux, even though people might not talk about it now, was a train wreck. About a week before launch of Redux, we realized that we had a really big issue on our hands, and it was that early game was extremely easy. So I, at this point, was essentially a solo dev for this mod. I didn't have anyone in the final week of Redux really heavily helping me with the mod, so it was all on me to fix this before launch. And I did it in the worst possible way, and that was by not just tampering with the scaling a little bit. No, that's right. 1 week before the mod came out, I completely scrapped the scaling we had been using and built an entirely new one. And it was a disaster. The mod released in a state where every enemy hit extremely hard, and every enemy was extremely hard to kill unless you had the tip-top best gear and knew what you were doing. And even though there were people like myself who still were fine to play the mod like that, and other people's streams who I watched, they were fine to play the mod like that, I can't deny that the way the mod released was unacceptable, and if you go back to my original video on the 1st of February, you'll still be able to find comments of people saying that the mod was just too hard and not fun to play. And let me tell you, you do not know the meaning of anxiety until you've got hundreds of people downloading your mod. Your trailer at the time of release is around 50,000 views, and this big release is all led up to this. You get the launch going great and everything, and then no one's liking the mod. It was horrible. And I think within the first week of release, we already had around 5 hotfixes out to address scaling issues. And again, you know, even though the way the mod launched was a complete disaster, it didn't mean we gave up on it. That's why we put all of these hotfixes out, and that's why we buffed a ton of stuff in the mod. And if you're someone who played the mod at launch now, I encourage you to go back and try it again if you were put off by the scaling issues we had at launch, because I believe they've been widely fixed by now. We implemented tons and tons and tons and tons of balancing changes to bosses, enemies, guns, and elements, just everything we could to make this mod more fun and more enjoyable for the player. We did it. And that, I believe, is what we hit our mark on. While the release wasn't perfect, I think the post-launch is where we wanted to be at release, and I'm very glad that we did. So again, if you're one of the people that helped test post-launch, thank you so much. So at the time of recording this video, Redux is in version 1.0.9, and I'm happy to report that as of 1.0.9, Redux has a healthy player base of over 400 to 500 players, which is absolutely insane. I wish I could get specific on the numbers, but unfortunately I can only go off of manual downloads through the Nexus mods page, but we also have people from GitHub downloading and Discord as well, so it is very, very hard. But there are still criticisms of Redux, and I want to talk about them in this video. The first one, and the biggest issue of all, is where are the patch notes? Where can I find a definitive list of changes for Redux? And nothing can truly explain how complicated this is to do efficiently, and if anyone has suggestions, feel free to tell me. But the short answer to this is that making a changelog for a mod like Redux is extremely hard. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean because Gearbox are actively updating their game and Redux is then going at them back and forth to update the mod at the same time, it can be one massive clusterfuck, which ultimately can lead in some patch notes not even being true, you know? So it's very hard to write a list of changes which might not even be in the mod at the time that you play it. And I've tried my best to think about ways to get around this, you know, maybe like an official Redux Wikipedia where we have a changelog section that we can update frequently if we decide to, say, remove a change or then, you know, add another change. Something like that would be really, really cool. But as of right now, there's really no definitive long change list for Redux, and I understand that there is a big problem and it's something that we're actively trying to fix. So please just be patient. The second complaint we got a lot with Redux was, I do not like the emphasis on element matching. Why is it like that? And for those of you who are unaware, because anointments were removed in the Redux mod, we instead made it so that element matching was more highly encouraged, and ultimately that led to a playstyle which I do not enjoy, and I don't think a lot of the other Redux players enjoy themselves. It means that unless you are using the right element for the right health bar at the right time, you are going to be having a really slow fight with any enemy you're going against, and it can make your playthroughs really unenjoyable. Now, I should make one thing clear, and that is that if you are element matching, you are going to be wrecking everything, and in fact in this gameplay you're probably going to see me one-shotting the majority of enemies and thinking, holy crap, that's overpowered as fuck. And that's because the system that I had in place for Redux really did work, you know, it really got across what we wanted it to do, and that was to match your elements, think about your fights, and go in there with the right gear. But unfortunately, not everybody liked that, and things like non-elemental guns as a result got shafted completely, with basically having no usability at the higher levels or even the lower levels. Another change in Redux which is really apparent is crit damage. Crit damage turns any gun into an absolute cannon, and even though I do like that, and I do like that hitting a crit is more rewarding in Redux, I don't think it's the answer in terms of ways to play the game. And in my opinion, just really isn't fun going around one-shotting every enemy because you hit a critical hit, but maybe that's just me, so you know, let me know what you think about that. So these kind of fundamental issues are things that we needed to take a look at, and things that we are still taking a look at moving forward for the mod, because ultimately I don't want this mod to be in a spot where people put it down because they don't like one feature of it. I don't want that, and I think element matching highlights the worst of it, which is why we're going to be taking a look at getting rid of that in the future. But now that I have been rambling on for such a long time, I think we should talk about the future, because this all begs the question, what is next for Redux? You know, we've got a healthy player base, people are really enjoying the mod, we're making solid changes, so what's next? Well, as I previously mentioned earlier, since the launch of Redux, we had been releasing hotfixes fairly frequently, and in these hotfixes, we were not just buffing things and trying to fix the balancing issues in the mod. Because as I did say in the launch video of Redux, this is going to be an actively updated and supported mod with frequent content drops. And we started teasing the first content drop quite a while back, and I'm going to show the image on screen right now which did it. And within this image we're greeted to a shovel which is stuck in the dirt with a toolbox laying on the floor next to it with the tagline, X marks the spot, begin excavation, #Omega. So I'll give credit to the Redux section of my Discord server here, because as soon as they saw this image, they got to hunting. They got in game and they went to find this image, and sure enough they did in the Devil's Razor on Pandora. However, upon arriving there was something quite strange about the area, and that was that there was nothing to this shovel or this box. But as hotfixes progressed, this area slowly changed into what looked to have been some kind of research site where things were being investigated. And even though from that point on we didn't really go anywhere with the excavation site, in Omega players are actually going to find out more about this site and what this did. And up until now I haven't really explained what the deal was with the excavation site, and you know, what was this all about? You know, what were these people digging up and what was in the toolbox? And that brings us to the name of the first content drop for Redux, which is titled Omega. Omega will be the first scheduled content drop for Borderlands 3 Redux, and it will be releasing at least a month after the release of DLC 6. And in Omega, not only will there be tons of new changes and new features for you to explore and play around with in the Redux mod, but you'll also get to use a few of the blueprints which were actually inside of that toolbox. Because in Omega, not only will we be releasing a brand new line of gear for our players to add to their arsenal, but we'll also be using some of the schematics found within the toolbox on Devil's Razor to reintroduce to the players the hybrid system from Borderlands 1, which will be returning in Omega. Because not only do I want players to be able to go and farm for new pieces of gear in Omega, what I really want for players to do is farm for rare variants of gear in Omega. Because one of the main complaints I had with Redux was that there never felt like there was a big hunt, something to chase, and that's what people want in BL3, but they are yet to get it. So in Omega, we're going to be giving this chase to players, this treasure hunt, this never-ending search for a golden goose egg. We are really going to be giving people something rare and unique to find. And it's all gonna start with this new line of gear. But as for the weapon schematics and the hybrids, that wasn't the only thing that was dug up in the Devil's Razor. And in the Omega update, you're going to be chasing a creature that was unearthed due to the research that was done at the Devil's Razor site. Because in Omega, we will not just be introducing a new line of weaponry, but we'll also be introducing a new Invincible to the game. The new boss is fierce, the new boss is tough, the new boss drops a shit ton of loot, but most importantly, the new boss can only be fought in the TVHM game mode, which is now going to be getting an overhaul in Redux Omega. The new TVHM mode in Borderlands 3 Redux Omega will not only feature increased dedicated drop sources for bosses, but it will also feature tougher enemies, the exclusive raid boss, and this raid boss will drop some of the new weaponry also. But we're not just done there either, because in Redux Omega, you are also going to be encountering new enemies during your playthrough, which means no longer will you go through Pandora just fighting the same old COV troops, no longer will you go through Eden 6 fighting the same old Saurian. You'll encounter enemies that you've seen in other places such as DLC 1, 2, 3, and 4, mixed in with the normal spawn rates of other enemies, making for a new, fresh, unique experience for your playthrough. And as I've already said, TVHM will be getting a huge spike in difficulty within Omega, which means if you are not one of them players who's got a good build, and you're not one of them players who is ready for a true challenge, TVHM might not be for you. But for those of you who are willing to put yourself up against this new challenge and weather the storm, the rewards will be plentiful, because again, you will see more loot from your bosses that you fight, and you will also see the new boss, which will be ready for a war with you and whatever arsenal you bring. I'll share more information on Omega when it's ready, but for now, I just wanted to make this video to let you guys know that more is coming, and we are nowhere near done with Borderlands 3 Redux. Thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.